And final check, 1-1, 2-2.
Doc Rivers continues to time and time again not get it when it comes to getting. Oh! Let him play!
You bet one bone to win 19. What site do you use where you can actually bet $1?
They let you do 50-cent bets.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, literally, like he dropped Superman down like the drain, comes out, like, God damn it, Superman. I don't know, honey. I don't know where he got that from.
From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City.
Part of the Dit Cow Sports Network.
Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans! And a pleasure to have you here for this special NFL Wildcard Preview Show. Good to have you with us from the Dave in the City studios at the home of champions, Southern California. We're glad to be with you here as we finish out the final results from our contest that we've been doing all season long. John in Connecticut's with us here to break down all the scenarios. Should be a fun wildcard weekend coming up, and certainly a lot of mystery to it. There could be a lot of big upsets in the mix. We'll see. I mean, time will really tell. But it was a very, very exciting Week 18 in the NFL, and an equally exciting college football championship round. Great times all the way around. So let's give you a recap of what happened in our contest, and we'll see if John was able to clinch the contest last weekend. Let's hit it! All right, so it's time for our wildcard preview, and let's give you the final results from our contests throughout the season. So in Week 19, John only needed a couple of games to clinch the thing. Really only needed one. He went two. So he went 2-2 for Week 19. Andy was close behind it, was literally the same, 2-2, as were Ron and me. We both went 2-2 as well. So the entire panel had the same record last weekend. And that's honestly a good thing for as crazy as that week was in the NFL. Junkie's guest picks went 1-3. And these are our final standings for 2021. John secures the first place finish at 43-30-1. Great job out of John. Andy in second place at 39-35. Ron in third place at 35-38-1. And I, Dave, that record actually looks better than I expected. 34-39-1. I mean, certainly, the beginning of the season, that was free falling, so I think I'll take it. Guest picks 31, 41, and 2. And that's how we wrap it up on the football picks this year. It was really a lot of fun, and just a good time talking about the games as well. So now let's bring our friend John into the show. We did have Andy scheduled, but Andy's got some other scenarios going, so we'll go. We can go for it, the two of us, and we'll have a good time previewing these games. So John, good to have you back. How's it going tonight?
What's going on, Dave? Good to be back. Yeah, very excited about my contest results from this year. I think I was dead last year, but my record comes out to be about 58%. So I don't know, maybe I should start a tout service. We'll see about that, I guess.
Yeah, I love it, John. It's good that I'm really glad that you bounce back, because it's tough to see any of us like that, in dead last in any given year. So I always root for people to bounce back, and I'm glad you did. That's really great. Well, good job out of you. Yeah. So Vito won your contest in the pool you were doing. Good job out of him. He's tough. He's a good player.
Yeah, he had a great run I think he had like 6 wins against you, or 5 wins in your matchup, and then like 5 or 6 the rest of the way. So it's funny though. So I was like you, Dave. I was in the opening round, and I lost on like the last game of that stupid Tuesday night when they had the rescheduled COVID games.
Oh yeah.
So then I just kind of kept track the last 3 weeks. Like, all right, if I had won, I did the same like picks, and of course I would have won the next 3 weeks. But I guess that's just how it goes. But I won't complain. It's such a fun thing to do, and congrats to the folks that won, that took home the prize this year. So already looking forward to doing it again next year. It's one of my favorite things, the pool that I manage.
And it's a good pool. It's a good pool and a good group. And let me also say congratulations on the college pick'em. I think you got a top 3 finish, right?
I did, yes. Actually, my dad got first, and then I got second. I literally had no idea what he was going with, but I said to myself, I'm not going to jeopardize like if I won, I was going to guarantee myself second place. So at that point, if he went opposite of me, whatever, you know what, that's fine. But he ended up going Georgia as well. So he ended up getting first place, and then I got second place. I think this is the first time I've won like bowl mania in all the years that I've been doing it. So it was a really good bowl season. I'm very sad that is ending. So yeah, definitely happy about that. It's been pretty good lately. The wagering, and I hit like the same game parlay on Sunday.
Oh, you hit that's great. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, in the Seahawks Cardinals game.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading these tweets in the morning about how Tyler Lockett needed like 2 touchdowns to hit, $2 million in incentives or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, all right, let me just throw together like one of these same game parlays. So I did Tyler Lockett to score the 2 touchdowns. DK Metcalf had another incentive kind of thing. He needed like 50 yards or something. So I put that in there. And then I just took the Seahawks and bumped the spread up to plus 10.5. And that was a really nice payout, especially with the Lockett to score 2 touchdowns. I mean, those odds are huge to begin with. So when you threw the other 2 in there, it got up pretty well. So I'm on a nice little streak here. So I don't know. When they say you win in threes, I think I got all 3 at this point. So I guess expect a huge losing streak now at this point, but we'll see. So it's been pretty good lately with the gambling. So I cannot complain, that's for sure.
I love it. Well, anyway, major kudos once again. So now we get to go and recap what was just one of the great, and I mean great, final weeks of the NFL season that we've ever seen. Like, it was an incredible weekend. And we had a good one a couple years ago, like when Miami upset the Patriots. That was back when Brady was still there. But kind of a lot of the juice just like that, but maybe even better, because like you had 3 games go to overtime. You had like virtual playoff games in a couple scenarios. So definitely with the Chargers and the Raiders. And it was just it was a great weekend of football. Like, and Saturday wasn't so good. No, we agree. But I will say, I got to give Denver a lot of credit for hanging in the game against the Chiefs. We thought they were going to get their butt kicked, and actually were hanging around for a while. So good out of them too. So let's get your thoughts about last week's action. I mean, a lot to cover, and that your prophecy about the tie game almost happened too in the Charger game. That's crazy.
Oh my God, I know. That was just. I guess you have to start with that. Well, first, to even get to that point, the Colts had to lay the biggest egg of the season in Jacksonville. I mean, my goodness. Carson Wentz, like, what happened to him the last couple games? It's just, they go from the team that nobody wants to play. They stopped the Patriots' huge winning streak on that Saturday night game. Following week, they have literally no offensive linemen, and they go into Arizona and win. You're thinking, oh, okay, all they need to do is win one of their last 2 games at home against the Raiders and then at the Jags. And, of course, they can't get it done against the Raiders, which puts the Raiders in position to make the playoffs. And then you think, all right, well, they're 15-point favorites in Jacksonville. Well, that spread was just so inflated to begin with. I mean, that probably should have been like 10 or 11. I mean, I took Jacksonville with the spread, but I never thought that they would get the outright win. And not only get the outright win, they completely just dominated them. It was like 23-3 in the fourth quarter. The Jags have one of the worst defensive lines and run defenses in football, and the Colts couldn't do anything. It was just so bizarre. It's one of those things where, I saw a trend that the Colts hadn't won in Jacksonville in 7 years. Like, they've lost all 7 games there in recent memory. And they just, for whatever reason, they just go down there and they can't get the job done. And what a horrible time to have your worst game of the season. And the Jags were coming off a 40-point loss. It was like 50-3 against the Patriots. And you're thinking there's just like no way that they're going to lose this. And just a miserable performance. And the Colts, they got some questions now. I mean, if they're going to stick with Carson Wentz, I mean, he kind of turned into the quarterback that he was with the Eagles last year, these last few games. And definitely something for them to evaluate in the offseason. So because that happened, then Dave, you have the Steelers and Ravens all of a sudden now is like a game with huge implications. So, that the Steelers had that night, they have a comeback in the fourth quarter. I still don't know why Tomlin didn't go for it on that 4th and 1 near the 50-yard line, and he just punted to get to overtime. I mean, it ended up working out, but I thought that was going to cost them the game. But really, their defense is what won it again. I mean, it is so painful to watch the Steelers passing game. My goodness. it's like every play is like a 3-yard out or a 2-yard hitch, and they just, it's really painful to watch. I mean, we'll talk about the game against the Chiefs later, but not a great matchup. But hey, you know what? We talk about these people for Coach of the Year. I mean, Mike Tomlin should get some consideration for winning 9 games with that team and with that quarterback. I mean, Ben is so washed up, it's not even funny. But hey, you know what? Their defense played excellent,
right?
And they just made enough plays to get the win. And just kind of the same old story for the Ravens. Like every single close game the last month of the season, they just couldn't get over the hump and make that one play to get the win. But Pittsburgh took advantage. So at that point, they're in the playoffs as long as the game on Sunday Night Football does not tie. So I guess before we get into like the particulars of what happened there, so Dave, how are you feeling as a Steelers fan? It's in overtime.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I mean the Raiders, they should have won easy. What was it, 29-14 in the fourth quarter?
That's the way we need to start, right? Because they were up with they had a huge lead in the fourth quarter. I'm like, don't tell me you're gonna make this go to overtime. Are you kidding me? I'm like, and then you're like, you think like if people who had the Raiders in picks too, and then it's just like, come on, guys, like, can you get did you remember how many fourth downs in a row the Chargers covered in that fourth quarter? Like 5 in a row.
That last drive, when it was 29-22, and it was the last drive that they scored on, they must have converted 7 fourth downs. I mean, I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but it had to be five fourth downs. And the last one too, was like 4th and 20 from the 23-yard line. And I mean, Herbert is amazing. They got to get him a good coaching staff. Staley is a complete clown. Like he's kind of like McVay, and people think he's smart, but he's really not. I mean, with this, all this analytic bullshit. Like, I'm all for being aggressive, but when he went for that 4th and 1 on his own 18-yard line early in the game, like, dude, like, pump the ball, okay? Like, so there's sometimes where you're just reckless making those kinds of decisions. And that, I mean, the Raiders, they kept him out of the end zone, but it was still a field goal for that point. But I guess, what are you thinking when it heads into overtime and both teams trade field goals? And then I don't think they traded punts after that. I think the Raiders got the ball back, and that's when the infamous last drive was going on. What were you thinking as the Raiders were? I literally thought they were going to run out the clock.
It looked like it, right? And then the timeout bails them out. Right. It's just like, what? What do you?
Right, they were just doing handoffs up the middle, like shotgun handoffs up the middle. I thought they were going to, on that 3rd down, I thought they were going to run it up because there was like 45 seconds left. So I thought, okay, they're going to snap one play, run it up the middle, and then they were all going to walk off the field with a tie. And it would have been the craziest thing in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
But Staley calls a timeout for some reason.
I don't know what.
Said,
I just have. Yeah.
I mean, he said he wanted to set his defense, which I don't know. It sounds like bullshit to me because, number one, there's 4 seconds left on the play clock. Why isn't your defense already set by then? You know they're going to run the ball. I mean, their run defense is terrible, so maybe he wanted to get the guys in the right position. Well, guess what? Your timeout didn't work because they just got 15 yards after the play.
Right.
Like, I think they had held them pretty well on the 1st and 2nd down with the personnel that was on the field. So, do you
remember what yard line they were at that point? Because I know that were they in field goal range at that point? Because
it would have been really long.
Yeah,
it would have been like 57, 56 yards, 58 yards maybe.
Yeah.
That guy Carlson is really good. So they honestly, they might have tried it. They might have ran the clock down to like 1 second and tried it.
Call a timeout and then try. Yeah.
Right. Knowing that the worst thing that can happen is he misses it and it's a tie.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people were saying, well, what if it's blocked? What if the Chargers would return it for a touchdown? Like I can see that as well. But at the same time, they kind of I can tell once he called the timeout, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, this guy's just being a douchebag about this. Like, let's just run a play and then let's knock him out of the playoffs. And that's exactly what they did. And even Derek Carr, he admitted it at first. He's like, yeah, that changed our thinking. But then he kind of like immediately went back on it because it kind of wanted to look great to put that out as their message. But I would be like, I'm like 99% sure that they were just going to run the clock out.
I would have
called that timeout.
Here's what I thought was going to happen. I thought they were going to run it down to like 1, call a timeout, and then like, okay, we'll we'll try to kick it from wherever that was. Like that, like you said, it would have been a really long field goal. He may have gotten it, but that's what I thought they were gonna do. But calling the timeout just fucked it all up. I mean, that's such a Charger thing to do. It just like I don't know how Yachts keeps like doesn't have. Well, he doesn't have any hair, but if he did, if he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I still
feel
have
bad
no
for
idea what
them.
he was thinking. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
But hey, you know what? He's still an NFL coach, and I'm not. So, good
For how
him,
long
but,
though? I mean,
yeah, this is true. Like, if I owned that team, I would have fired his ass right after the game for that kind of move. Like, who cares? You can find NFL coaches. Like, it's not like a college program where like it's if you go one and done in a college situation, that's definitely going to hurt your program. But one and done in the NFL, who cares? Like, you're just going to bring in new free agents or whatever. I mean, sometimes clearly when the coach has to be fired, you got to get rid of them. So, I mean, I thought we were going to have another fun year of Joe Judge next year, but unfortunately the Giants took care of that yesterday and got rid of him. But man, yeah, that honestly, what a game to end the season on. That was the game of the year by far. Even though it could have ended in a tie, that was the game of the year. One of. I mean, there are so many games all year we'd have to go back on. But that was definitely the top 5.
Yeah.
Of games of the year.
Completely agree.
So, yeah, and so that was all the drama was in the AFC wildcard situation. I mean, the other things that needed to be decided, the Bills kind of had a ho-hum win over the Jets to clinch the division. And it didn't matter either way because Miami just blitzed New England, which was interesting. I mean, again, just like the Jaguars beat the Colts at home, the Dolphins just seemed to have New England's number down in Miami. And I was pretty surprised about that spread. Like Patriots were almost a touchdown favorite, which seemed like a lot to me. But in any event, but that sets up the Bills and Patriots again for the playoffs. So I guess you can't complain with that. That should be a pretty good game. And then the other thing to be decided this weekend was in the NFC with the NFC West. And man, they kept throwing out that stat about Sean McVay, like 40-something an hour or whatever when he was leading at halftime. Well, you can throw that one out the window.
Yep.
I think they were up 17-0.
17-0.
And then the Niners come out and just run the ball literally the entire third quarter and get back into the game, just gashing them. And then it looked like they were going to take the lead late in the game. Garoppolo throws a horrible interception. The Rams go down the field and score a touchdown. You're thinking, oh, okay, it's over. And then there had been like a minute left. I don't know the exact time, but it was probably around a minute. And they let them go 90 yards in like a minute to score a touchdown to tie the game. Just horrible situational defense. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. And the Niners end up winning it in overtime. The good thing for the Rams is the Cardinals were just as inept.
Yeah,
they couldn't beat the
right.
Seahawks at home. So that sets up a perfect matchup, Rams and Cardinals next Monday night. Like that is just, yeah. We'll talk about that. But who the hell knows that game? I mean, my goodness.
Oh, man.
Two, like, fraudulent teams, in my opinion, matching up in that one.
Oh, boy. Wait till you hear my prediction for that one. Oh, you're not going to. You might be surprised.
I can't wait. They can't end in a tie, unfortunately.
True.
It's,
they'll keep going.
Can't end in a tie in a playoff game. And then with that win, the Niners clinched the wild card spot. Because if they had lost, the Saints won, so the Saints would have gotten that last spot.
Yep.
So, so that wrapped up the NFC, and I think that was pretty much it for seeding situation. I mean, some of the teams like shuffled in the NFC, like the Bucks got up to the 2 seed, Cowboys 3, and the Rams lost, dropped them to 4, and then the AFC Titans won to clinch the 1 seed. That was the other seeding situation. So, Crazy week. This actually was not the first NFL Week 18. They were saying that before in one of the strike seasons, they had a Week 18 back in the early 90s. I don't remember it. I mean, I was alive, but I don't. I probably didn't start watching football until the mid 90s, so I don't recall that. But very interesting week. I mean, so the other games just didn't have any playoff implications, so we don't really need to discuss them. But I will say, like, again, the Giants and Joe Judge, doing quarterback sneaks on his goal line just to give his punter room. I mean, he deserved to be fired for sure. So that was a good decision by them. And if we're on the topic of coach firings, I was very surprised that Miami got rid of Flores.
Yeah.
I guess there was some kind of internal struggle there with him and the general manager because, in terms of the results on the field, his record was around 500, but from when he took over last year to now, the team clearly improved. Or I'm sorry, 2 years ago, the team clearly improved greatly, and they always played hard for him, and they're a competitive team. So that one was a little surprising. The NFC North teams, not surprising, they got rid of Nagy and Zimmer, respectively. We'll see what those teams do. I mean, they're going to be looking up at the Packers as long as LaFleur and Rodgers stick around, at least in my opinion, anyway. And then Denver fired Fangio, which can't blame him for that. I mean, he's a great defensive coordinator, but he's just not made out to be a head coach, as we saw again on Saturday when he's, obviously the guy Gordon fumbling the ball is not his fault. They were going to put that game away if they scored a touchdown there in that spot, but on the next drive when he goes to kick a field goal down 4 points, it's like, what are you doing, dude? Like you're 5-11, like just fucking have some balls and just go for it. That's what I don't understand with some of these coaches. Like, you literally have nothing to lose. Like, who cares if you don't go for it? Like, go for it on every fourth down. Like, what's the point? At that point, like, who cares? So,
like Staley, go for it fourth down.
Yeah, well, but he had something to lose though. Like, he's playing for a playoff spot. He's fighting for his playoff life. I mean, Fangio, the Broncos. I mean, the team's going nowhere. Like, who cares? Like, give your fans some excitement.
Yeah.
But yeah, crazy week 18, and we'll remember that. I'll remember that Chargers Raiders game for a long time. That was something else.
Yeah, one to remember. So that brings us now to to this week's action, and it's time for the Super Wildcard round in the 2021 season. It's a huge slate. Now we used to have like a handful of games, and now we have just a whole bunch. So there they are on the screen. I think for those of you listening on the podcast, I think you probably already know what the matchups are, but I think the key matchups here: Raiders Bengals to start. Bengals are always always a perennial favorite or a perennial appearance at 4:30 on Saturday. So. The tradition continues for them. Pats Bills, a divisional matchup. I mean, if you remember, their last the meeting on Monday Night Football was memorable. It was like a really low scoring game. The win was crazy in Buffalo. Eagles, Bucks, 49ers, Cowboys, Steelers, Chiefs, and Cardinals, Rams. And we're gonna go through these one at a time because I think there's a lot to talk about with each of these. I mean, the one that probably had the least amount to talk about is the Eagles game. Like, not much to talk about there, but everybody else, there's juice, and I think it'll be interesting. Even the Steeler game. I actually think the Steelers might have a shot at that one. Not to win necessarily, but just to make it interesting. We'll see. But John, I'm going to give it to you, and let's get your thoughts about each of these games. But we're going to start with the Raider game. Now, the Raiders, the question is, what do they have left in terms of what they can bring to this game? And I'll show you the odds in a moment. These are the odds. And you can see Cincinnati's a 5.5 point favorite per the Action Network. And I don't know. I mean, do you think the Raiders will give them a game? What's your feel for this one?
Yeah, you're right, Dave. This is just a horrible situational spot for the Raiders because, you have the motion of having to win 3 straight games to get to the playoffs. First off, they played the Sunday night game. Goes into overtime. They play literally the full overtime period, and now they play the Saturday early game. So that's one less day of rest, and then you add in the overtime from Sunday night. I mean, the guys are highly conditioned athletes. I mean, they'll be fine from a physical standpoint, but just mentally, it just got to be kind of draining. So I could see the Raiders starting slow in this game for sure. However, as good as Joe Burrow's been and as dynamic as Chase and Higgins and that offense can be, do we really want to trust the Cincinnati Bengals in a playoff game laying 5.5 points? I don't know if I do. So I think my lean here would be to take the Raiders. I know the Raiders defense isn't very good, and the Bengals probably should score a decent amount of points. But I just feel like the run that the Raiders are on, I think they're going to play this one pretty well. I think they can have success on the Bengals defense. You saw over the last couple of weeks that, Mahomes pretty much had their way in that, well, at least in that first half. So, I mean, I'm not saying the Raiders have the Chiefs offense by any means, but Carr can be very efficient with his passes. Having Waller back is huge, and Renfro's emerged as a pretty reliable target for him, and they can run the ball with Jacobs. So I think they have the recipe here to kind of keep this game within the 5, like 4 points. I could see like a 24-20 kind of win for Cincinnati, if that. And, I don't think there's a huge – I know the Raiders have an interim coach, but that guy Bisaccia has done a pretty good job, I'd say, considering all the circumstances that he had to take over the job for. I mean, we'll see if he gets consideration for the full-time role, but I still don't trust Zach Taylor in this spot at all. So I think that's kind of a wash, the coaching edge. So I'm going to lean towards the Raiders here, getting the 5.5 points. That'd be my feeling for this game. I'm just not going to trust Cincinnati laying that kind of number. But like I said, though, I think the Raiders could start slow. So maybe Bengals first half or even first quarter. I'm not really into first quarter bets, but I could see that being a play. And then the Raiders maybe like claw their way back in the game. And like I said, it kind of ends up maybe 24-20. That's kind of my feeling on this game. So who do you like in this one, Dave?
Yeah, I think my instinct in the beginning was Raiders plus 5.5. So the only thing I'm worried about is like, will they be exhausted after that game? You tend to see a really big letdown after an overtime game, especially if you win. It's like I can't even imagine how they're going to keep up. But I mean, there is something to be said about that Cincy defense. It's really bad. Like it's a bad defense. I mean, that's a tough nut to crack. I think whenever they always say when you don't know where to pick, take the points because that's the best way to go. And like you said, like Cincinnati in a playoff game is just never a good bet, especially with almost a touchdown. Like I'm not gonna do that. So I'm with you. I think I'm gonna go Raiders. I'm gonna get the Raiders in the points too. It should be a close game anyway. I think neither team can really put away anybody else. Like both teams are notorious for letting teams hang around. So I think just from that principle, I think it's worth it.
And if the Bengals win and the matchup is Bengals-Titans, you can pencil that right in for next Saturday at 4:30 too.
That's true.
Because just think of the other teams that could play. Like obviously the Packers are probably getting together nice. They're not. Well, actually, last year they were the Saturday 4:30 game, so I shouldn't speak for sure. But I mean, I would imagine Bengals and Titans would be the 4:30 game if that's how the seeding worked out. Because the Bengals are the 4th seed, so if all the higher seeds won, if it was Bills, Chiefs, and then Bengals, Titans, like they're not putting Bills, Chiefs on it Saturday at 4:30, and then like if it's Packers and Rams and Cowboys and Bucks, like that game is going to be Saturday 4:30. So
that's a great call. We'll be on the lookout. So it's interesting when you saw the matchups, you could see like what games were going to get what slots. Like if you take a look at, for example, like I knew that when the 49ers won, I'm like, oh my god, that 49er Cowboy game is going to be. It's going to be primo, like Sunday late afternoon. Like I didn't know what the network was, but I'm like, whoever was doing that game, like they're going to get that game. And they are. Like it's 4:30 Eastern, of course. Like it's like interestingly enough, they say that that's a better time slot than the Sunday night time slot and the Saturday night time slot. I don't know why, but they say that it's just better ratings for whatever reason. So yeah, that's a big get. And then like the Steelers and the Chiefs, we figured they're going to get some kind of primetime coverage, either Saturday or Sunday or Monday, and they did. And we'll see. And everybody hates it because, like, the Steelers are tough to watch. I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's just that's the scenario. Anyway, let's get back to the matchups. Patriots Bills. You're looking at it Saturday night, and let's go back to the odds and take a look at that if you're watching on YouTube. So Buffalo's a 4-point favorite. The over/under is 44.5, and let's get your thoughts on it. Which way would you lean on this one?
Yeah, so there's going to be some weather in this game, too. Just like the first game. I just pulled up an article about it. Let's see here. It's going to be wind chill below 0. Not in terms of – not the wind like there was last time. It's just going to be extremely, extremely cold. So we'll see how that affects the offenses. Clearly, it's going to. Usually, when you see those cold weather games, it's kind of harder to pass, harder to kick the ball, obviously. So I think maybe under could be a look for this game. I really can't see the screen there, Dave. Is it 44.5?
Yeah,
the over-under for this one?
44.5, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that number, I'm kind of leaning towards the under in this one.
Okay.
For sure. With those conditions and just the way the Patriots like to play right now. I mean, they're not really an explosive offense. You know, they kind of like to use their running game with Harris and, hopefully limit the mistakes made by Mac Jones and just let him manage the game. And they got behind on Sunday against Miami, and that just killed their chances in that game. You remember the matchup just a few weeks ago in New England? Josh Allen just had a phenomenal game against the Patriots. The complete opposite of the weather game, but it was just so windy that night. Like, really couldn't do anything with throwing the ball. And he finally, they had good conditions for that game in New England, and he played phenomenal. So I think I would lean the Bills in this game. I think the Patriots have been a nice story all year, and Mac Jones has played fine for a rookie. I just think kind of in this last month, they've kind of lost some steam here. I'm not, the Bills have been so up and down, so it wouldn't shock me if the Patriots won, because Belichick is so good, and just he comes up with these game plans to take away the opposing team's best player and just really limit what they do. I mean, remember that wind game, and I think Mac Jones threw 2 passes the entire game. So I mean, he does stuff like that to put their team in the best position to win. But I just think in general the Bills are the better team, and I'll trust them at home to win by more than 4 points. So I would go Bills and under in this matchup, and in a lower scoring game, so like 23-14 or something like that. I can see the Bills winning. I mean, just look at Sunday; it was the same kind of conditions, and there weren't many points scored on the Jets. I mean, the Bills didn't play amazing. I mean, that's kind of been their story all year. It's just really up and down for them. But I think when they bring their elevated level of play, I think they're better than the Patriots, and we'll want to see them advance here. So I like the Bills, so I take them in the under in this game.
Well, I like them to win. I like the Bills to win. I think they're gonna win the game. I'm a little worried about it because Belichick is Belichick. He's really good at scheming and such, but they're just, as you said, they're just a more talented team. They got more good players than the Patriots have good players. And Mac Jones had a nice year, but I'm not sure if that offense can win you a game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if they can manage a game so that you can win, but can they carry you to a win? No, I don't think he's got that. They have that kind of offense, and I think in the playoffs you have to do that. Like, I don't think you can win with just defense, and their defense is good. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's a great defense, but for that reason alone, I mean, it is a divisional game, so from that standpoint, I might just play the +4 anyway. But I'm probably leaning the Pats with the points, but I don't think they're gonna win the game outright. So I don't know how that works out, but that's sort of my lean. Yeah, that's
maybe a money line parlay with something, Dave. Put that in a money line, maybe.
I think so. I think that would do it. That would be a good call. Yeah, the money line. Now, if you want to do a money line parlay, I'll tell you what would be really good. Like, parlay that with the next game, the Tampa game. Like, that would be. That is going to be a money line parlay. Like, once the Buffalo wins, like, at least I think the next game's a short. However, people have been saying that the Bucks are really not looking good, and I'm curious as to where you are with them. So we can go ahead to that game now and see what you think of Bucks against the Eagles.
I mean, the Bucks certainly haven't been impressive over the last month or so. I mean, they had that, the loss to the Saints 9-0. I mean, in that game they lose Godwin. I mean, Evans got hurt, but he's back. And of course, the whole Antonio Brown fiasco. So they lose another top receiver. So they're down on receivers. They've struggled on the road this year. Good thing this game is being played in Tampa, because they've been dominant at home for the most part, other than that one game against the Saints. I know the Bucks are probably glad the Saints didn't make the playoffs, because the Saints defense has just owned Tampa since Brady's gotten there. It's like the one team that's really given him fits. But I mean, they easily could have lost that game to the Jets. I mean, the Jets make a dumb coaching decision on that fourth down play, and Brady is Brady and leads them to the drive, but they easily could have lost that. They haven't been playing great, but you know what? They're here. They're the number 2 seed. They're the defending Super Bowl champions. So you have to respect them in this spot, and they got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So, this is just a bad matchup for the Eagles, because what's the one thing that the Eagles really do well? They really run the ball well. Well, the Bucs have probably the best run defense in the NFL. No one even tries to run on them for the most part. So that's going to put the ball in the hands of Jalen Hurts. And I mean, he's been okay this season, but I mean, there's some games where, they lost to the Giants on the road and he was just awful. So if you're going to be counting on him to win you the game, I think that's a tough ask for him to do that. They really need to rely on their running game, and I think it's going to be shut down in this matchup, and they're going to struggle. I did see, again, this game is going to, of all the games this weekend, this game is going to have some weather. So I was just reading, there's a 70% chance of rain and wind of up to 22 miles an hour. So you think that would favor the Eagles, who are a ground attack, like I just mentioned, but I think the Bucs will be able to still shut that down, and the Eagles are going to be even more screwed because they're going to be trying to throw the ball in 20-mile-an-hour winds down in Tampa. And, Brady and the Bucs will find a way to get their offense going to score enough points here. So I definitely like Tampa laying the 8.5. I mean, obviously, as a biased Green Bay Packers fan, I do not want to see the Bucs advancing. Like, we want to get them out of the playoffs. I mean, if the Packers have to play them, they play them. I mean, it is what it is. And I wouldn't, if that's the rematch in Lambeau Field in a few weeks, we'll accept it when it comes. But I definitely would like them to lose, but I don't see them losing this game. I just think it's a pretty poor matchup. When these two teams played earlier this year, Bucs dominated the game, and somehow the Eagles ended up getting a backdoor cover. Do you remember that game, Dave? It was on a Thursday night.
Right.
It was wild. I don't know how the Eagles ended up covering, but they somehow did, and they got completely dominated in the game. But they somehow got in the number. But for the most part, the Bucs were the far, far superior team. And here at home, back at home, I think they'll continue that. So definitely like Tampa minus the 8.5. I saw it open 7. I hate myself for not getting on that, even though I think they'll win by 10 or more. But definitely would have rather had the 7. So I think you would agree on this game that Bucs are going to roll them pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I think 8.5 is a lot, but I just can't see how the Eagles are going to put up the points to keep up with them. Every game I see with the Eagles is they're barely scoring 20. If they're lucky, you've seen some games that are just real rock fights. Like the one against the Giants was just a rough game to watch. So it's yeah, I mean, I think a good example of what the Eagles might, or the kind of team that the Eagles are, is Carolina. And that was last week. And it always looked on paper maybe they could hang around. And they just didn't. And just too many turnovers by Darnold and those guys. And I feel like that's the risk with the Eagles. No matter what they might be able to do with running the ball or whatever, I feel like they're prone to turning it over too. So that's going to be a big problem. So honestly, I just think Tampa Bay is going to win. I don't know if they're going to win by 25, 24 or 30, but they'll probably win by 12 or 14 or so, something like that. So I think the under is the best play, because you just mentioned the wind, and I'm yeah, I mean, you have all that, and then the wind, usually 20 plus mile per hour wind is equals a lower scoring game. So that I like more, but I will lean Tampa Bay. Yeah. So let's move on to the next game. We're going to go with the 49ers Cowboys. It's obviously a huge marquee matchup. Really, the names are. I mean, the players haven't really been in the playoffs that much of it lately, but big time franchises, obviously. Tons of history with both teams, and the Niners sneaking in there after that dramatic playoff comeback, or that dramatic overtime comeback against the Rams. They're a gutty team. They're gritty. They had a comeback against Tennessee too, if you remember. Oh no! I'm sorry. Tennessee had a comeback on them. They blew a game actually against the Titans a few weeks ago. So they've been able to hang with all the good teams. And so it's interesting to see that. I think this game could be really, I think I'm just going to give it to you right away, John. Let's get your thoughts because, again, 3.5 for the Cowboys. If you take a look at it, it's a tough one to call. It's a tough one to call for me. Yeah. So what do you think?
I agree. This is a tough one. It's like right on that number where you don't feel comfortable taking Dallas as a favorite, but same time, I don't know if I really like the 49ers I could see them losing by 4 as well. And like you lose that way. But like, why is this game on CBS, Dave? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I mean, Fox
they get one game.
Gets one game the whole weekend. Just strange.
Yeah,
it's very.
That
strange.
Doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Like CBS has 2, so why shouldn't Fox get 2? And then, they could have done NBC gets 1 and ESPN now gets 1. So I don't. Maybe they're like flip.
Maybe they get them. Maybe they get 2 of them next week. Like maybe that's the thought. I don't know. It's strange.
Right. Maybe they get 2 next week, and CBS will just get the 1 next week. I guess we'll see when the schedule comes out. Because I think NBC will get a divisional game as well. So, but in any event, that's like just nerd stuff that we're talking about. But in terms of the game itself, gun to my head, I'd probably lean with the 49ers. Getting I think the half's important. I think this could be a 3-point game for sure. The Cowboys offense has, I know they've scored a lot of points in these games, but in the games that really, I guess, mattered per se, like remember the Arizona game a few weeks ago, like they really couldn't do much of anything. And some of these games, they just started really slow. Dax had some turnovers. I mean, I remember the Giants game. I know they won fairly handily, but it was like a 20-9 game. They really didn't do great. I mean, it definitely helps them to be at home on that turf for sure. So I think they'll play better than, say, if it was like an outdoor grass game. Like if it was in San Francisco, I think they'd have some big trouble. And the Dallas defense has been pretty solid all year. I mean, Parsons is just an animal. That was just a great pick on their part, and he's just been wrecking games. But I think they can be had, though, for the most part. And I think, the Niners, it's just a dominating run game with Mitchell, and then they have Deebo Samuel coming out of the backfield and as a receiver. And that guy is just a phenomenal talent. I know what you can say about them. I think it all comes down to, like I was going to say, if the Niners get behind early, they're screwed. But they kind of just proved that theory against the Rams last week. I don't know if that's more because of, McVay just like screwing things up, or, you just can't trust Stafford. But I do think the Niners, just their style of play just lends them to being a very, very live dog here. Shanahan is typically much better as an underdog than as a favorite. And who can forget the guy on the other sidelines, our old friend Mike McCarthy. Not exactly the playoff coach that I want in this spot.
Yeah.
So very, very tough. This is probably my least confident of the picks this weekend, but I'll just take the dog in this scenario. So we'll go with San Francisco plus the 3.5. As long as it stays the half. The 3, I don't feel as great. The 3.5 for sure. And was that total 51? Can you put that up again?
Sure. It was 51. Yeah, that seems like a lot.
It is 51. I like the under.
Yeah.
Again.
I like that
so
too.
I think so far, every game, I would bet on. I don't know, the Bucs game, I know you said you like under, Dave. The Bucs just seem to score 40 points at home in their sleep. Or even if they score 31, the Eagles can get 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know about that one. I like the other 3 unders so far, and that's the one game that maybe it would kind of go against your intuition with the weather to say over. But I think the Bucs at home is probably a good over bet. But in any event, for the Dallas game, I would say San Francisco plus 3.5, and then the under 51 would be my choices for this one. What do you think?
Well, let me ask you this: if 3.5, you're right, that would be really tough. But would you be willing to tease both of those? So you can tease San Francisco up to 9.5, which would be really good, and then the over/under. Imagine this: you could tease that all the way up to 57. I'm like, I can't
I
even.
like that.
That sounds pretty good. Like
San Fran plus 9.5 and under
Yeah.
57. Yeah, sign me up for that one.
Yeah.
That's a good
that
parlay.
might be the way to do it.
Even if you wanted to go, like if you wanted to tease some of the other games. So if you did, just off the top of my head, you did San Francisco plus 9.5,
Mm-hmm.
Tampa Bay minus 2.5.
Yep.
And then Arizona plus 9.5. There's your 3-team teaser right there. I don't feel comfortable teasing the other ones. I mean, maybe if you want to tease the Raiders. I mean, I could see teasing the Raiders to like plus 10. I could see that too. Maybe throw that one in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a pretty good teaser option for this weekend.
Yeah. So then the follow-up question is, would you be willing to buy up the 3.5 to 4, like in the case of the Niners?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think stick with the 3.5. I think buying points gets you into trouble for the most part. I very, very rarely do that. Like 7.5 to 7, like I'll do 3.5 to 3, but not to 4. I wouldn't do to 4.
Right on. Yeah. It's like, as you mentioned, like it's probably be one of those things where it's like, I feel like if the Niners were to cover, they're probably going to win, you know? Like there's no point.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
So
it's just like in Bowl Mania. Like if whatever team you're taking with a straight up pick, or I'm sorry, whatever team you're betting with the spread, do as a straight up pick. It doesn't matter if it's a 10-point underdog. Just take the straight up pick, because more often than not, the underdog is going to win the game outright. And I went against myself in that theory once this year. Of course, it burned me in Bowl Mania. I mean, I ended up doing well, so it didn't matter. But the Texas Tech and Mississippi State game, I took Texas Tech with the spread, which won clearly because they blew them out in the field. But I took Mississippi State straight up for the Bowl Mania pool, and that was a dumb mistake. So yes, whatever team you're taking with the spread, take with the straight up pick for sure.
Yeah, very, very interesting strategy. I like it a lot. I have to remember that next year. But pretty good. So yeah. So as far as my own analysis of the game, I think I'm gonna also side with. I've really struggled with this point spread all week. I've been looking at it all from the moment it opened. Like I'm like, okay, so the intuition is after a dramatic game, especially if you're not that good a team, especially if you've got Garoppolo as your guy as a quarterback. You're like, yeah, they're probably going to get their ass kicked. That was my thought. But then I looked at the public numbers, and that just kind of convinced me to go the other way with it for two reasons. Number one, for years, I've never liked to lay points to the Cowboys, ever. I've rarely done it. Like, I thought I might have done it. No, I didn't. I was thinking, like, did I do it with the Eagles game the other last weekend? No. What I did was I put the Cowboys in a parlay, a money line parlay. I'm like, and that was great because like they won easily, right? But I do not ever trust the Cowboys as a favorite at home in a playoff scenario. Look, and sometimes they get it done. Like one year in the playoffs, they beat Detroit in the playoff round. That's great, but I'd rather, kind of like what Andy was saying about the Packers. Like I'd rather bet, like he would say, I'd rather bet on the I'd rather bet on the Packers and get it wrong than not bet on them and then they win, or they cover. And that's the same principle with me. Like, I just don't want to be on the wrong side of that. Like, I don't want to bet the Cowboys and they lay an egg, because that just seems to happen more times than not. You saw it against Arizona. You saw it against the Raiders. Like, they do not cover at home. They're just generally not a good home cover team. And pretty much since Thanksgiving, they've honestly not looked that good. The only team they really had any kind of handle on was Washington, and Washington's a grease fire. So, like, that's not a good example. I don't think you can throw that game out. So, more of the last part of the season has been the Cowboys struggling, particularly on offense, and I think San Francisco can hang around just from that. So, I think the Niners are coming in with better momentum, even though they could be worn out. I still think their defense is good enough to stay in this game. And so I'm going to go Niners plus 3.5, and if they get their butt kicked, I don't mind. Like, I think that's fine. I think the Cowboys would be more fun to talk about in the divisional round. I'd rather do that than bet the Cowboys, and then the 49ers, like, beat them by 17, and then I'm out the unit, and then we got to be dealing to get the 49ers for, like, the week. Like, I'd rather... I'd feel better about myself if I was wrong the other way. So that's my thought. Niners plus 3.5. Good times. So let's go to the to my team, the Steelers. And here they are coming in. They probably don't belong in the playoffs. Let's be real, but it's all good. They're going to play the Chiefs at 8:15 on NBC. But having said that, much like what we say about Cincinnati, they won a Super Bowl. I get it, but I still can't wrap my head around trusting Andy Reid in a big spot, and particularly as a big favorite like that. I just think that the Steelers defense is too good. They've had a lot of turnovers in the last game. I'll go look up the box score to see how many they had, but they had a lot. Now, just imagine a scenario where the Steelers did not turn the ball over at all. I think they would stay within 3 touchdowns. I don't know about 2. But I think your odds are better than not in that scenario, just because it'll be an ugly game in that spot. Chiefs are beatable. I mean, the Cincinnati did it, right? Teams can beat them. Packers, if they had Rodgers, would have beaten. You know what I mean? Like that, they were beaten.
Right, they would have kicked their ass
Absolutely.
that day.
Absolutely.
Love. If Crosby had made a kick and they were competent on special teams, they could have won the game with Love. But yet Rodgers would have destroyed them that day. I'm not saying they would in the Super Bowl because the Chiefs' offense has played better since then. But that day, for sure, they would have just kicked their ass.
Yeah, 100%. So here's the thing. I think the Steelers need to commit to one basic thing to stay in this game. Run the ball. Because Najee, I was worried about him during the game against Baltimore because he got hurt in the middle of the game, but he came back. So hopefully he's all right. If he's okay, run the ball. Because the Steelers have the Chiefs have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Commit to the run. Limit the number of throws from Ben. I think they're going to be around for a while. So I don't think they're going to win, but I think don't be surprised if it's a one-possession game late. That's sort of my thought on that game. So I'll give it to you now for your thoughts.
That's really all you can hope for, Dave, is to be in the game in the fourth quarter and not like the first matchup when it was, 35-3 or something like that in the fourth quarter or something. It was a huge blowout. The game was over by halftime.
Yep, really was.
So, there's something to be said about beating a team twice in the same year, especially when the first game was just an epic blowout because – the other team, the Chiefs, are just going to be overconfident. We just kicked their ass 3 weeks ago. What's going to be different in this game? So I just think from that standpoint alone, the Steelers definitely have an edge because the Chiefs might be a little overconfident. But, the matchup, it's not very good because, you figure the Chiefs, as good as the Steelers defense is, the Chiefs are still going to get their 24 to 27 points. I think even you would agree with that.
I would, yeah.
So it's going to take a lot for the Steelers to win the game. I think if they get maybe a turnover or two, if they can get Mahomes to play like he was playing in the middle of the season where he was throwing an interception, it felt like every single game, and they can get a short field for a score or two, I think they can score 20 or 17. But really, that's kind of the ceiling for the Steelers offense at this point is 20 points, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And, that's probably not going to be good enough to win. I definitely could see what you're saying about them staying in the game to cover, though, because if they can run the ball effectively, and you're right, the Chiefs' run defense is not very good. Their defense in general is not really good. I know they had some decent performances early in the middle of the season after they kind of went off to a slow start. But look at some of the quarterbacks they were playing. I just mentioned they were playing Jordan Love in his first ever career start. They played the Broncos a couple times with Drew Lock, and Drew Lock looked phenomenal on Saturday for most of the game. So, the Raiders offense hadn't really done much against them. And that was when they didn't have Waller and some of these other guys. So, their defense is not great. Look what Burrow did to them. And again, I am not comparing Ben Roethlisberger at this stage of his career to Burrow and those receivers. Right. But, I think the Ravens defense is way better than the Chiefs, at least in the run anyway. I know the Ravens secondary has been pretty decimated. But so I think the Steelers can score some more than they did, against Baltimore last week where they scored 16. So they can I think they can get 20. Is that going to be enough to cover the spread? Probably, because I think the Steelers defense will keep Mahomes in check enough. And if they commit to the run, like you said, this can be like a 30-20 game. And I think the Steelers could cover it. I can't see them winning this game, though, unless they get like a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown, or they just get so many short fields that they keep the Chiefs off the field. And if they run it so well, they like dominate time of possession. That's probably the only paths I see to them actually winning the game. But Dave, I think you might have convinced me to do a bet here on the Steelers.
Oh, let's see.
13 is a lot in the NFL, especially in a playoff game. And like I said, the Chiefs are going to be really overconfident. And the Steelers are playing with house money because literally no one expected them to be here and to make this game. So they've got nothing to lose. The pressure's all on the Chiefs in this spot. So I think the Chiefs will win by 10. So you know what? Give me the Steelers with the points. I may sound like an idiot here next week, but I'll take the 13 with you.
Let's do it. All right. So that brings us to the big matchup here in town, the Cardinals at the Rams on Monday Night Football. Now, I think it's because it's on Monday night. There's a contingency. The logistics would allow me to go in the building, but with the Omicron and everything, I'm not going to do it. But it's nice to know that I could. It's kind of cool. So as far as the matchup itself, it's a very interesting case because a divisional matchup, it tends to be a good matchup, but boy, what do you say about either team? John, you're right. Like, both teams have been just stumbling to the finish line. Like, the Rams were very fortunate to win the game against Baltimore, and then they had a massive meltdown against the Niners. And then you look at Arizona, they lost the game to the Colts, and then now they beat the Cowboys. So good, that's a great job out of them. The Cowboy game was great. But you cannot lose to the Seahawks like the way they did. They lost going away. It was pretty pathetic. So I remember you made the point that the offense has not been the same without Hopkins, and he's been out for about a month, like over a month. And so I'm gonna give it to you for your thoughts on this game because I have mine, and yeah, like I said, is that you might be surprised by my prediction here, but I'm gonna give it to you first.
Okay. Yeah, this is like almost like a loser leaves town kind of game because whatever coach loses this one, I'm not saying they're going to be fired, but significantly going to go down in opinion even more so. I mean, the Cardinals, this is 2 years in a row now where they got off to an amazingly hot start and they just completely folded down the stretch. The only win in this, like their last 6 games was that Cowboys game. And that was, it was a great win. I mean, their defense played excellent, but their offense has not been right since Hopkins went out, number one. You mentioned that, Dave. And Murray had his injury. And since he's come back, he hasn't been able to kind of, make plays with his legs like he usually does. And that's really hurt their offense. I think, their teams may have figured out Kingsbury's offense, which is very possible. And they just haven't played good football the last 2 months of the season for whatever reason. Injuries certainly have played a role, but their offense is just not the same of what it was. But you can't trust the Rams either. I mean, Stafford is throwing pick sixes almost every game. He's clearly a talented player, and we saw that for a number of years in Detroit, but we also saw that in Detroit too, like the mistakes that he makes. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of them. I mean, they can run the ball sometimes with they have Michelle, and I think Cam Akers might be back, so that certainly can help them. And they have Ramsey, who's a tremendous cover corner, but I don't know. Their defense hasn't come up in a big spot really all year, to be honest. I mean, they just let Garoppolo go down the field 90 yards in a minute to win the game. And honestly, I don't know. Seriously, like who do you trust in this game? You can't trust either team.
You can't.
So, but if you're going to force me to pick, I'll go with the Rams just because I still think Kingsbury is a complete clown, and I just don't like. At least the Rams have put together some halfway competent performances in the last month or so. I mean, they've had some rough losses, but at least they've won some games, and I do think that they'll be able to, Kupp and Beckham will be able to do some damage against the Cardinals. And I think their defense is they'll get some good pressure on Murray.
Yeah.
With their front four, and I think that'll be the difference. So I'll say Rams by a touchdown, but honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if the Cardinals won. But just for the pick here, I'll say Rams by a touchdown, just because I think they're slightly more cohesive at the moment, and I trust McVay a little bit more than Kingsbury at the moment. But yeah, when I saw this matchup, like I'm kind of hoping that the top seeds win, because I would love the Packers to play either one of these teams next weekend.
Oh,
I don't want to play the 49ers, to be honest with you.
Really?
That's the one team. Yeah,
wow.
I just think that the Green Bay run defense is definitely the weak link of their defense. Although they will get some guys back. They're going to get Zadarius Smith back. They're going to get Jair Alexander back. But just those guys are going to help, like in passing down, like a pass rush, and Alexander's one of the best cover corners in the league. Well, it's not going to help you when the Niners are running the ball down your throat. So I definitely think that'd be the tougher of the potential opponents. So I'd much rather play the Arizona Los Angeles winner for next weekend for sure.
Tell you what, one thing about, you're talking about running the ball. They did get Edmonds back, but man, the Cardinals are stinking running the ball. They are bad. They are so bad. So
Connor had an amazing fantasy season though. Like they were just dumping it off to him every single play basically, and using screen passes and whatnot. He gets the carries at the goal line too, so he turned out to be very effective. But you're right, just like on a pure, basic 20 to 20 running plays, they're not good.
Nah. And honestly, the Rams aren't either. Like either whether it's Henderson or whoever else they have. Like I think they're using Michelle recently. I don't think they're that great either. So they really need to throw the ball to win. And so when you talk about what they're going to do, I'm not honestly sure if that's going to really matter against the Packers, either one of those teams. But we'll see. Here's the thing. But that's why you said you want to play them rather than the Niners. That makes sense. Totally makes sense. So, all right. So let me give you my thoughts on this game. When the Cardinals lost on Christmas Day, or Christmas evening, let's say, to the Colts, I told my dad right after it happened, I said, this team ain't doing shit in the playoffs, like Arizona. They ain't doing shit. So I'm not going to let recency bias change my opinion there. I am very unimpressed with the Cardinals, and I think the Rams are going to kill them, to be honest with you. They're going to kill them. I think they're at home. The Cardinals beat them the first time, but remember, that was a different team. Like you mentioned, Connor is going, you had Hopkins, very different team. The team as it is today is different. The Rams beat them in the rematch in Arizona. So I think if they get another crack at them, I think the Rams will actually beat them pretty handily. So I expect a huge win for the Rams. Not saying that I'd be surprised if they lost, because as you mentioned, McVay's a clown too. Let's be fair. He's a clown as well. But personally, if you ask me to make a prediction, I think that's what it's going to happen. I think the Rams will cover the 4 easily. They're going to win by like 10 plus. It'll be a very decisive game.
So, Dave, would you do a prop? Like they have those like winning margin props. So would you do Rams to win by say 10 to 14 points? That could be an interesting prop.
Oh yeah,
probably get really good odds on, or 10 or more even. I mean, they offer those specific windows, like 1 to 5, 7 to 10, like 10 to 14, like that kind of thing. But you could probably get one like 10 or more too. It probably pays pretty decently.
Let me take a look at that, because like I wouldn't like doing specific windows, but if there's an alt line of like Rams -9, I would be all over that.
Oh yeah, you probably can get that too. You can probably buy any kind of alternate line, like -9.5 or -9. Yeah, get on that.
Because I mean, honestly, it's either going to be that or they lose. I don't really see it in between. I feel like.
Yeah, so, this will be a real shit show, I think.
Yeah,
so it'll be good entertainment anyway on Monday night. So that. Do you watch the Manning cast, Dave? I am ashamed to admit I have not watched the Manning cast all year.
I watched it a couple times, but I haven't since like week 3 or so. It's been a while. Yeah. I
mean, people are it's all over like the internet when you're watching. If you're following Twitter and watching the game, like it's all people are talking about the Manning cast. I guess I'm a sucker for punishment listening to Brian Greasy and Louis Riddick. Although I think Louis Riddick is pretty good. I mean, Greasy I could do without. But you know what? It's a huge upgrade over Booger, so I will not complain too much.
You took it out of my mouth. You did.
Anybody would be better than Booger, so I'm not going to complain too much.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, the Medicast is fine, I guess. Like, I mean, I'm not so sold on the idea that it's like, oh, it's just so much better than the regular telecast. I think the biggest problem is that they're just talking. They're not really you're not really taking you through the game, which is fine, but I think it needs like a host. Like it needs like some other guy to like go, and we're back, and then you guys keep talking, and then like, you know what I mean? I need some continuity, but I'm kind of like Fiddle that way. I'm always a fan of continuity, so I mean, it's not necessarily bad. Like I think I like some of their stories. Their guests are kind of boring, to be honest, but I think if you just had the two of them the whole time, I think it'd be fine. So I would definitely love to hear your thoughts on it. If they're doing any playoff games, let me know what you think. And yeah, I'd be curious what you think, because Ron loves it. He said that he loves it more than the regular telecast, which is interesting.
Interesting. Maybe I'll tune in for this one just to see how I like it, or at least for a quarter anyway. Because then if it's just kind of, because you mean, even though half the time the analysts are full of shit, like for example, Booger was full of shit the entire time. Like that would have been great to do the Manning cast when he was the analyst. But even if he was, full of shit, like you still like to see like the replays of what just happened and at least some analysis. And I guess you're not getting that with the Manning cast.
Not really,
They're talking over the game essentially.
Effectively, yeah. That's sort of been the issue. Is like, the thing is, it's cool. I mean, if you just didn't care about the game, or if the game was completely out of hand, it's a great option. But I noticed that there was like one time where the game was actually pretty good. I'm like, you know what? I need to go to the regular one just to get an idea. Because you're kind of like, it's like it's in the background. Like the game's like...
Right, you're more focused on them and what they're talking about than the game itself.
Right. So
yeah,
that's what I would say about it. It's a good question. Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all the games. So yeah, it should be a very interesting weekend. Like, honestly, there's an argument for taking every underdog except for the Eagles. Like the Eagles, I can't. Like I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that's the one team I can't bet is the Eagles this weekend. Every other underdog I definitely could make a case for. I just can't see it with the Eagles. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do a 6-team parlay and we'll see what happens with.
You mean wait? So like every so you take like all the money lines? Yeah, like that, is that the idea?
No, spreads.
Oh, spreads! Wow.
16 parlay with spreads. If I hit 3 or 4, I'll consider it a win. But what I will do, Dave, I know you don't have this in California because you guys are behind the times now.
I know. What the hell?
Betting.
Seriously.
Yeah. I saw New York just got it, so maybe there's hope for California in the future after all. But I love doing the same game parlay, so I'll probably do one on each game. So that'll be fun.
Oh yeah, SGPs. Yeah. When I was in Colorado visiting Coach and company, like I was using FanDuel for like a couple of days, and so I familiarized myself with SGPs. Like those are cool, very cool. I just thought that was something you could do anyway. I never realized that you're normally not supposed to do that. But when my other account, like
I know it's an interesting thing because I mean clearly their books are making just a shit ton of money off of you with those because they adjust the odds somehow. So like you said, if you just pick 3 regular props and parlayed them, you're probably going to get better odds than if you use the same game parlay feature that they offer you because they manipulate it, but. Whatever. I mean, it's a quick way to make a decent amount of money. Like if you put $10 in, you could win 150 if these 4 things hit. So, I enjoy them. I'm not expecting to win every one of them. It's just an additional thing to just, if you hit 1 out of 5 of them or 1 out of 10, like you're doing pretty good. So it's just another dumb gambling option. But it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it sounds like I definitely did. I think I did one. I think I did the SGPs for the. So when I left Denver, it was the afternoon before that game against the Bills game. And like, oh my god, like I'm gonna do the first half under. I'm gonna do the halftime under. I'm gonna do the first quarter under. I'm like, it was fun. I think I missed one, but I got the other one. Then like, it was a big night. We went to town.
The Bills Patriots game.
Yeah,
because that win. Oh my god! You know what? That would have been like I was late to the party on that, or else I would have been with you. Like just you hammer every under possible and all the receivers, all the the quarterbacks, everything. Someone out there, I'm sure, just completely cleaned up.
Yeah.
On that, but I think I just had the game under for that one. I didn't think clearly enough to say, okay, well, there's going to be no passing in this game. Let me just go hit the unders on every receiver possible. But I didn't think that clearly. But maybe next time you see there's like going to be a typhoon kind of winds, you'll go on there and just hit all the unders. But yeah, they're definitely fun.
Yeah, you know what? It had huge fantasy implications if you remember that game. Cap texts me after the game. He's just livid that, or I think it was on Twitter. He was just livid about Mac Jones not putting up a donut in that game. I'm like, Cap, dude, there was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. Like you had to sub that guy out. Like we knew about that wind like a few days earlier. We didn't know it was going to be 30, but we knew it was going to be bad. So certainly I felt bad for him, but it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Mac Jones is your starting quarterback on your fantasy football team.
Right.
I mean, it was probably a bye situation.
It might have been a bye situation, yeah.
You got nobody else, but I mean, that's a rough spot for sure.
Yeah, it is. To be fair, like, who would have been a good replacement off the wire? I don't know. So it was just a bad spot, yeah. So, anyway, SGPs are fun. That's the spot. That's sort of what I was getting at with that. So it'd be good. Let's talk about the college championship. Give it up for Georgia. Finally, they win. They finally get it done, and they did it primarily with defense. And I think I don't think there's a whole lot to say. I mean, honestly, Stetson Bennett, though, whatever. Like, he did what he had to do. I don't really have any real things to say about him. Good for him. He's a Georgia kid, so that's great. I'm happy for them. Yeah, you called it. I'll tell you what, a week ago you called it, and what was shocking to me is that so many people in our pool actually picked Georgia with you. I guess everybody's keen to the idea that you can't beat a team twice. It's really hard to do. I was completely stunned at that, and I think that's the single reason why I didn't end up in the top three, because like I thought, I'm gonna have at least most of the people are gonna pick Bama. Didn't happen. So props to all of you for sniffing that out. And I don't know if you're necessarily worried about it at any point. I know Bama went up 3-0 early, but I don't know. Just what can you say about Georgia? I mean, they had a great season. Their defense was awesome, and they got it done. So good for them.
Yeah, it was a very entertaining game. Well, early on in the game, it was kind of boring, just trading field goals and not much offense happening. I mean, the Georgia defense really kept them in the game early on in the proceedings when Bama couldn't get in the end zone, and they held them to field goals. And Bama was really dominating the game at that point, and they just held them out of the end zone. And eventually, they finally got their offense going. You had Cook had that huge run. And, man, I'm really stupid because I finally realized it's Dalvin Cook's little brother. I had not known that until the national championship game. So bad job out of me. But, he had that huge run, which kind of sparked their offense. And Bennett was pretty bad for 3 quarters. And then out of nowhere in the fourth, like, they come out throwing on that drive when it was, 19-18. And, it was just so quick how it happened. They get the touchdown, 3 and out, went down the field again instantly for another touchdown. And then they get the pick 6 in a matter of 5 minutes, the game is over. And Georgia, it was just done at that point. Bama losing their star receiver, Williams, definitely hurt their offense. Because, Alabama's like these other blue blood programs where they can just kind of plug in the next guy and they're going to be okay for the most part. But, it happened in the middle of the game. So you're trusting younger players to step in and play at that same kind of level. And it's a tough situation, when if you don't have as many reps or you're just not familiar with the play calls, that kind of thing. And I think that definitely hurt Alabama, especially going through the game. Bryce Young played okay. He did miss a few throws. I mean, Georgia got some good pressure. I remember that was that one throw where he had a guy breaking open the end zone, but he couldn't get it to him because of the pretty big pressure he had in his face. So, Georgia's defense really came up when it really mattered, and that's kind of been the theme all year for them. Their defense just dominated throughout almost the entire season. The only team that had success against them was Alabama in the SEC title game, and they definitely remedied that loss. And really, like I said, the key to the game was early on keeping Alabama out of the end zone when Bama was kind of dominating in terms of the yardage and just the game flow. and it allowed Georgia to stay in it and regroup their offense. And Bennett made enough plays at the end of the game, and they finally overtook Bama, and that was it once they got the lead. So just a tremendous job by Kirby Smart and that entire team. And you got to think that this could be a national title matchup again next year. I mean, these two teams aren't going anywhere. Dominating recruiting rankings. Bennett's a senior, isn't he, Dave? I'm pretty sure Stetson Bennett is not going to be with them next year.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at that, but I'm pretty sure he's a senior. But in any event, I mean, like, what a story. The kid's a walk-on, and he ends up starting and winning the national championship. But I know JT Daniels, I think, is still there. So we'll see. But you know what? Their defense is so good anyway. Like, I'm sure they're just going to reload, and they can kind of play the same kind of game next year. So, we'll definitely see these two teams back again in the mix. And it was a really entertaining game. I am not always for like the same conference championship, but you know what? They're the two best teams. And I do think the playoffs should be expanded, even if you end up with Alabama and Georgia again in the finals. Like, who cares? Like, getting there will be more fun, than just having the 4 teams. If it's 12 teams, like, okay, you end up with Alabama and Georgia, but you have all these other great games to be playoff games. Like, if that Oklahoma State Notre Dame game was a playoff game, that would have been pretty sweet. But I digress. It was a really good national championship, and it capped off a great bowl season. So I definitely enjoyed it. And, a shame that some of them got canceled, but, it is what it is. And already going to be counting down the days till August 27th. That's for sure. That's when the week 0 will kick us off for the 2022 season.
Yeah, pretty neat. So yeah, I mean, I think I can't add anything to that. I think I'm just glad we got a good game. Even if it was ugly just for a while, but it was a close game, and I think that was way more than I could have possibly asked for in that. Because a lot of people were worried about the result being similar to the SEC championship, but I at least felt like Georgia would be in it more than that. I think they were just completely unprepared for the situation. Here, they had time to prepare. Their defense obviously did a much better job. They limited turnovers, and as you mentioned, and again, defense wins the day for this team. And I think that's the biggest thing about Georgia that I have to give them a lot of credit for, is that they never tried to get away from their identity. They knew that the defense was their strongest asset, and they rolled with it, and they stuck with it to the end. And eventually, when you keep it within range, you could make plays, and they totally did. The defense made plays too. I mean, obviously, Bama was going to try to tie the game, and then you had the pick 6 at the end of the game, so that was big too. That's certainly a part of it. So, yeah, I mean, it was about week 6 or 7. I was like, you know what? Let's stop fighting it. Georgia's a great team. Like, I just stopped. I kept thinking, this is when they're going to mess up. This is when they're going to mess up. They never really did. Like, I think the game against the SEC, against Bama, I mean, listen, I was ready for that, but I also kind of sided with you. I'm like, that doesn't mean they're going to do the same thing again. And so I give them a lot of respect. I think they came into this game, they wanted it. They fought hard, and they made it happen. So good on them. And not going to disagree on the playoff expansion either, although I am starting to get a little annoyed at how the actual playoff games have been really terrible. And so do you think that the expansion will fix some of that so that you're not stuck with some shitty like Big Ten team in the play? You think so? Okay, yeah.
I think so. Just because you're going to have more teams involved, and just as you get more and more teams in, you're going to be bound to have some competitive matchups. Just the gap between, say, team 5 and 12 is not the same as between Georgia and Michigan, which is sad to say, but it's it's true. Yeah. So I definitely think there'll be more competitive matchups when we get those get it expanded. Like Ohio State, Utah probably would have been like a playoff game, and that was a great game.
Yeah.
So
true.
Just something like that. I definitely think it'll be a more competitive situation, even if it does end up, in the end, like the number 1 and 2 teams. But, it is what it is. Like, the NFL playoffs sometimes ends up the 1 seed versus the 1 seed in the Super Bowl. I mean, if they're the 2 best teams, then so be it.
Well, I'm down with that, definitely. And I think the cool thing about what this matchup was is that I think over the course of the season, and then including the playoff, as we mentioned, it was clear that they really were the two best teams, and that's what you want. And so we've come a long way from where you had split national championships and random bowls deciding things and just a lot of nonsense like that. The two best teams got to play it on the field and decide it, and that is a good thing. And so it bears out, and you ended up with a good game out of it, and that's good too. So great way to end it for a college football season that had a lot of juice, and I think it's good to see. I'm happy to see some of the teams were down. Like Clemson, I think we had enough of them, so like it's good for them. Finally, kind of getting their just desserts and stuff like that. So we'll see. It is interesting to note that what could have happened if Ohio State did not lose to Oregon. I'm just very interested to see, would they have been in the national championship game? What would have happened? That would have been an interesting one. I don't know.
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it probably wouldn't have mattered, because if the season played out the same way, Michigan still would have made the Big Ten championship game.
Right. Yeah.
So it probably wouldn't have mattered. And if they beat Michigan, that's a different story. But the loss to Oregon, it in the end, it didn't really mean anything.
Yeah, that's right. True story. So with that, let's just go to final thoughts for the program. It has been a really fun time recapping all these games and previewing the wild card round. John, let's see what do you have to say as we close it up tonight?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really else to add. I think we did a good job of getting into every matchup. Wish could have done a little better maybe with the X's and O's part of it, but it's just kind of a feel thing at this point. Like, we've been watching these teams for 18 weeks now, 17 weeks. So you just kind of have a feeling of where they're at, and it should be a great weekend. I mean, some things the NFL does are stupid. Like, we've talked about this before. Like, just because you can do it, like, doesn't mean you should. But this idea of having just the one bye in each conference, I think really has made, it's made it, of course, super important to get that number one seed because you're the only bye team. And then it's just made the wild card round just phenomenal. I mean, you have 6 games this weekend, like all weekend. So you can't get any better than that. So I think it should be a great weekend. I think we should have some great games. They're all, I know that on paper, a couple of them don't look that competitive. But like we said, Dave, I think we have every underdog with a legit chance to at least cover, except I think the Eagles are probably the one team that I wouldn't bet on to cover the spread. I think the rest of them are all live to cover, and some of them even to get the outright upset. So I'm just hoping for some drama late in the game so we can all be on the internet, like posting and tweeting and having outrage about all sorts of things. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun, and looking forward to getting back here with the divisional matchups next week, and we'll see when the number one seeds, Green Bay and Tennessee, get back in here, and will be interesting to see what those matchups look like, and hopefully we'll get Andy and Ron back in the mix. So yeah, definitely should be a fun weekend, and we'll definitely enjoy all the games.
Quick question on that show. Do you want to do that? I don't know if I can do Wednesday. Would you be free on Thursday? Because if I need to, I could probably just do a later Wednesday show. Then we could probably do that. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Thursday, depends on everybody else. At the moment, I don't think that'd be a problem for Thursday.
Okay.
I mean, the good thing is they're all the weekend games. So it's not like, if we had to push a regular show, it's like you're going up against Thursday night football and there's really nothing else going on. Mm-hmm. So, that'll work. So
okay. I'll get back to you on that. I'll let you know. Yeah. Thank you, John. Well, have a great weekend and good luck on your action too. I'll see you soon.
That sounds great, Dave. Good luck to you and everybody else. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks. Bye. Take care. All right. That's it for John. That was good. That's a good time. Like, we are set you up for the wild card round. I think we're ready to go. I hope you're ready to go too. So that's our show tonight. Thank you very much. Again, John, appreciate your time. And we will see you at some point next week. I'll figure out when. But thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. If you missed any of it, you can check it out at ditcow.com or here at youtube.com/ditcow. And if you want to check out any of our past episodes, same 2 spots. And we hope you've enjoyed this entire season of Football Picks. We'll see you next time.